What if I told you that everything you've been taught about aging is wrong? Society glorifies youth, smooth skin, endless energy, new beginnings, while treating aging like something to fear, something to fight against. Wrinkles become a problem to fix, gray hair something to hide, and growing older feels like losing everything that once made life exciting. But is that really true? Think about this. Some of the most peaceful, fulfilled, and wise people in the world are not the young, but the old. Buddhist philosophy teaches that aging is not a curse. It's a doorway to something far greater. If you've ever felt frustrated about getting older, worried about the future, or nostalgic for the past, then stay with me. Because today I'm going to share 5 powerful Buddhist lessons that will completely shift the way you see aging. By the end of this video, you won't just accept getting older. You might actually appreciate it in a way you never thought possible. These lessons have transformed the lives of countless people, and they can transform yours too. But only if you open your mind and truly listen. So let's begin. One of the biggest struggles with aging is that it reminds us that everything changes. The body changes, friendships shift, loved ones pass away. The things that once came easily, like running up the stairs or reading without glasses, suddenly take effort. It's easy to feel like you're losing control, like time is slipping away too fast. But Buddhism teaches us that change isn't the enemy. It's the very nature of life itself. This idea is called anicca, or impermanence. Nothing stays the same. No person, no moment, no stage of life. Everything is in a constant state of change. And the more we resist it, the more we suffer. But when we accept that change is natural, we free ourselves from unnecessary pain. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Robert, a 70-year-old retired teacher. For years, he struggled with the idea of growing old. He missed his younger self, the respect he had at work, the strength in his body. Every day he felt bitter about what he had lost. But one day he came across a Buddhist teaching that changed everything. You only suffer when you cling to something that was never meant to stay. Robert realized that life was never meant to be frozen in time. Just as a river keeps flowing, life moves forward. Instead of clinging to the past, he started embracing the present. He found joy in simple things, morning walks, meaningful conversations, the wisdom he could now share with younger people. His life didn't get younger, but it got richer. The truth is, aging isn't about losing, it's about transitioning. A flower doesn't mourn when it turns from a bud into full bloom and then into its final stage. Every phase of life has its beauty. You are not who you were at 20, and you won't be who you are now in 10 years. And that's okay. So instead of fearing impermanence, learn to flow with it. Enjoy where you are now, because this moment, just like every other, is fleeting. When you stop fighting change, you make room for peace. And that brings us to our next lesson: why letting go of attachments is the key to true freedom. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with aging is not just the physical changes, it's the attachments they refuse to let go of. We get attached to our youth, our looks, our careers, our roles in the family, and when those things start to change, we suffer. Buddhism teaches that attachment is one of the main causes of suffering. Why? Because everything in life is temporary. When we cling to things that are meant to change, we set ourselves up for pain. Think about it. How much stress comes from wishing things were like they used to be? How often do we compare ourselves to our younger selves or feel frustrated when we can't do what we once could? Let me share the story of Susan, a woman in her early 60s who struggled deeply with retirement. For decades, she was a high-powered executive. Her work gave her purpose. People listened to her, respected her. But when she retired, she felt lost. Who was she without her title, without the fast-paced life? She clung to the idea that her best years were behind her, and it made her miserable. Then she came across a Buddhist perspective on attachment that changed her mindset. It said, when you let go of who you were, you create space for who you are meant to become. Susan realized she was not her job. Her worth wasn't tied to her productivity. Once she stopped fighting the transition, she discovered a new kind of joy. She started mentoring young women, traveling, and finally had time to deepen her relationships. Letting go didn't mean losing. It meant making space for something new. The same applies to aging. If we let go of the idea that our value is tied to youth, we open ourselves up to a different kind of richness, wisdom, freedom, and deeper connections. We can spend less time wishing for the past and more time appreciating what's in front of us. The question is, what are you holding on to that is causing you pain? Letting go isn't easy, but it's necessary. And that brings us to our next lesson, how living in the present moment can transform the way you experience aging. Have you ever noticed how much time we spend either looking back or worrying about the future? As we get older, it's easy to get caught in nostalgia, thinking about the good old days and wishing we could turn back time. Or we fear what's ahead. Will my health decline? Will I become a burden? Will I still have a purpose? But Buddhism teaches something incredibly powerful. The only moment that truly exists is right now. This idea is at the heart of mindfulness, being fully present in the moment instead of getting lost in regrets about the past or worries about the future. When we learn to focus on now, life becomes richer, more peaceful, and more fulfilling. A Zen master once said, "If you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are at peace, you are living in the present." Let's take the story of John, a 75-year-old man who spent most of his retirement feeling stuck. He constantly thought about how much stronger and more independent he used to be. He also worried about his future. What if his health got worse? What if he ended up alone? These thoughts consumed him. One day, his daughter introduced him to mindfulness meditation. At first, he thought it was silly, but he gave it a try. He started practicing something called the 5 senses technique, focusing on what he could see, hear, feel, taste, and smell in the present moment. Something amazing happened. Instead of being lost in his thoughts, he started experiencing life again. He noticed the warmth of the sun on his skin, the taste of his morning coffee, the sound of birds outside his window. He felt alive. And the more he practiced, the less anxious he became. Mindfulness is not complicated. You don't need to sit cross-legged for hours. It can be as simple as fully enjoying your next meal, feeling the sensation of your feet on the ground, or truly listening when someone speaks to you. The more present you become, the more peaceful aging feels. So here's a question. When was the last time you truly lived in the now? And that leads us to our next lesson, why happiness isn't found in external things, but within yourself. As we go through life, we're taught that happiness comes from the outside, achievements, wealth, relationships, looking good, being admired. But as we age, some of these things start to change. Careers end. Looks fade. People come and go. If our happiness depends on things that are temporary, what happens when they disappear? Buddhism teaches that true happiness is not something you chase. It's something you cultivate within yourself. No amount of money, youth, or recognition can bring lasting happiness. But inner peace? That stays with you no matter your age. There's a famous Buddhist story about a man who spent his whole life collecting treasures, gold, land, fine clothes, believing they would make him happy. But as he grew older, he realized he still felt empty. Frustrated, he visited a wise monk and asked, "Why do I feel this way? I have everything I ever wanted." The monk smiled and handed him a cup with a small hole at the bottom. Then he poured water into it. No matter how much water he poured, it kept leaking out. "This is your life," the monk said. "You keep trying to fill yourself with things from the outside, but they never last. True happiness comes when you stop chasing and start looking within." Let's think about real life. How many times have you heard of wealthy, successful people who are still miserable? And yet, some of the happiest people in the world are monks with nothing but the robes on their backs. Why? Because they have learned that happiness is a state of mind, not a collection of things. Take Margaret, a 68-year-old woman who always believed happiness came from being admired and accomplished. When she retired, she felt lost until she started focusing inward. She began practicing gratitude, meditation, and simple joys like reading and spending time with loved ones. Instead of chasing happiness, she discovered it was already inside her. So ask yourself, what are you relying on for happiness? What if true joy was something you could access right now without needing anything more? And that leads us to our final lesson, why growing older isn't about decline, but about stepping into the greatest wisdom of your life. Society might tell us that youth is the most valuable thing we have, but Buddhism teaches the opposite. In many cultures, aging is seen as a decline, something to resist. But in Buddhism, growing older is an elevation. Why? Because wisdom is one of the most precious things a person can gain in life. Think about it. When you were younger, you may have had more energy, but did you have the understanding you have now? Would you trade all the lessons you've learned, the experiences you've gathered, just to go back in time? Probably not. That's because true value comes not from youth, but from insight. There's a well-known Buddhist saying, "When the student is ready, the teacher appears. When the student is truly ready, the teacher disappears." In other words, life itself has been your teacher. Every challenge, every mistake, every triumph has given you something that no young person can buy: perspective. You have walked a path that younger generations haven't, and that makes you incredibly valuable. In many Buddhist communities, older people are respected, not ignored. They are seen as guides, mentors, the ones who carry the wisdom that others need. And yet, in Western culture, many older people feel invisible, like they have nothing left to give. That couldn't be further from the truth. Take Thomas, a 72-year-old man who once felt unneeded after retiring. For years, his identity was tied to his job. But then he realized that his value didn't come from what he did, but from what he knew. He started sharing his life experiences, mentoring younger people, writing about his lessons, and embracing the role of a teacher. He found that his wisdom had real power. The truth is, younger people need you. They need your guidance, your stories, your lessons. You have already walked through storms they haven't faced yet. Your wisdom is a gift. Don't let the world tell you otherwise. So instead of seeing aging as a loss, what if you saw it as stepping into the most powerful stage of your life? Now that we've explored these 5 lessons, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's the biggest insight you've gained about aging? Let's start a conversation in the comments. Aging isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. Buddhism teaches us that life is always changing, and the more we resist, the more we suffer. But when we accept impermanence, let go of attachments, live in the present, and find happiness within, aging stops feeling like a loss. It becomes a journey toward deeper wisdom and peace. Think about it. The beauty of youth fades, but the beauty of wisdom grows. The world may glorify being young, but true fulfillment comes with experience, understanding, and the ability to appreciate life in ways we couldn't when we were younger. So instead of seeing aging as an ending, what if you saw it as a new beginning? A chance to live with greater peace, to share your wisdom, to enjoy the present moment more than ever before. I'd love to hear from you. What's the most valuable lesson you've learned about getting older? Have these Buddhist teachings shifted your mindset? Share your thoughts in the comments and let's start a conversation. And if you found this video helpful, consider sharing it with someone who needs this perspective. Because aging isn't a problem to solve, it's a path to walk with wisdom, gratitude, and peace.